Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new playthrough on the channel. As the description suggests, it's rainy, it's gloomy, it's been all day, so that sounds like a perfect time for an episode of Mythos Monday. And tonight on Mythos Monday, we've got a treat here, as Conflict Board Gaming is first to join us tonight. What we're going to be getting up to tonight is we're going to be getting up to an episode of Call of Cthulhu. Let me explain a little bit more about what I'm doing. Actually, I need a pencil for this before we go too much further, so I will be right back for that. Pardon the slight humming of the water bubbler you might have heard. So what we're getting up to tonight, I'm just setting some of the dials for things I need here. We're going to restart this with, I believe the maximum hit points is 13, so I'm just resetting my character. Okay. So I'm getting my dials together. I've got one for the 50s is current. Actually, we'll bring the dials in shot here. So 50 will be his luck. 13 is his, actually no, 50 is his sanity. 13 is his current hit points. 10 is magic. And 60 is his luck. It would help if I turn the dial the right way. There we go. So we've got all our dials set to go. So Call of Cthulhu is an RPG set by Chaosium, set in the world of H.P. Lovecraft. And if you've been around the channel for a while, you know I do a lot of content in the Lovecraft world. And I've recently started getting into tabletop RPGs. One that I've explored pretty consistently is Call of Cthulhu. I've done a lot of the alone adventures, but now I'm stepping into the more traditional world of Call of Cthulhu. So what I'm doing tonight is I'm actually going to do a pre-written adventure. I'm going into my copy of Doors to Darkness, 5 scenarios for beginning keepers, and we're going to try our hand at the Darkness Beneath the Hill, which is one of the adventures in here for beginning keepers. Now, before you start typing in the comments or the chat, Phoenix Knight, you're only one player. How in the world are you going to be able to do this adventure? Well, funny you should ask that, because I've got a couple of game emulators. I was going to do a pre-written adventure 2 weeks ago, I believe, the last time I put Call of Cthulhu on the channel, but I was going to be using the Solo Investigator's Handbook for that. I got a little bit gun-shy around that, and I decided to junk that and do another freeform scenario instead. So what I think will work better is the Game Master emulator that I've been using for my Dragon Age adventure. We're going to be using Mythic Game Master emulator, and that centers primarily around this fate chart. So I'll give a quick explanation on how the fate chart works. So based on the current chaos rank, which is determined at the end of each scene, which can adjust at the end of each scene, you'll frame a question to interact with the scenario in a yes or no question. And then based on whatever you think the odds are of a yes, you'll roll a D100 against that. Let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit so you can see. So let's take a look at a 50-50 question. You'll see 3 numbers in here. You'll see a 50 as the biggest number. If you're at or below that on the question, that's a yes. But there are also 2 other smaller numbers printed here. First, you may see a 10 up here. My brother and I played a lot of Cthulhu games years and years ago, but I always liked Cthulhu games. Well, good to know. So just coming back to the fate chart, if the roll is at a 10 or under, we get what's known as an extraordinary yes. Whereas if it's 91 or above, we get an exceptional no. So as an example of how that works, let's take a post-apocalyptic RPG, which would happen easily enough after Cthulhu comes and destroys the world, or after nuclear war, or after I get married, something like that. Say we come across a car and the keys are either in our possession somewhere, or maybe they're in the ignition for some reason, like things went haywire and the owner of the car is now dead or otherwise disappeared, something like that. We want to know, okay, does the car start? As far as the yes or no, those are pretty self-explanatory. Either yes, the car starts, or no, the car doesn't start. Whereas if we were to get an exceptional yes, so say we're rolling on the our fate chart here, we're looking at a 50-50 odds, and we roll at a 10 or lower for an exceptional yes. Think of this as like a yes and. So this would be something like, yes, the car starts and it's got a full tank of gas, or yes, and the trunk is full of supplies, something like that. Whereas if you roll at 91 and above, think of that as a no and. For example, this would be like a no, and you discover on later inspection that the fuel tank is ruptured, or no, and the car explodes when you try it, or something or maybe even the door is locked, or maybe the door is locked and it won't even open, something like that. So that's how Mythic works, and that's how the extraordinary yes and no works for that. The reason I'm doing that, the reason I'm using the fate chart from Mythic instead of the Solo Investigator's Handbook is I think Mythic will let me have the story flow along a little bit better, whereas if I'm trying to use the Solo Investigator's Handbook and getting freeform with it, I'll get kind of off rails with the story. So hopefully having Mythic as my oracle for my yes-no questions will help that along a lot better. So I think with that, we're all set. Let's go ahead and meet our character that we're taking through. We are taking Silas Miller, a private investigator, a pretty young PI who's based in Arkham, but he was born in New York City. So he does speak a little bit of Spanish as one of his skill details because he had a lot of friends in his youth. And I realized some of these skill values might be hard to read because I did write them in pencil. I wanted to be able to change them if I needed to. So, yeah. I think that is everything there. Oh, and actually he did survive. Looks like he survived which one is it? Alone Against the Flames. Because he had some burns from a bonfire that was burning him, and that happens in Alone Against the Flames. So that's one of the main ways that I use to roll up characters. But I'm getting very rambly on that front. What say, rather than we talk about the intro stuff, let's actually intro our adventure that we're doing tonight. So this one's set in Providence, Rhode Island, and I'm not going to go through all of the history of this. What is relevant, though, is we have a friend basically if somebody new who's discovered we have a friend named Josh Winscott from New England Stock. He writes a lot of magazine articles, and he's hired Silas to investigate something, to investigate the tunnels. So Silas walks in, Josh greets him, and they come into his house. He's found something very interesting. So the house, we make our way up to College Hill. Among other residences that look like they survived from the 18th and 19th centuries, we're at 79 Power Street with overgrown bushes and trees obscuring everything. Door creaks open as we go in to open the door creaks open, and we call out, "Josh, are you here?" And he's shouting for us to come in, but it sounds like it's coming from up above. It's coming from below. So he appears on the stairs as we're going from the basement into the kitchen. As we look around, we can see tools, debris, and everything strewn about the house. Looks like he might have been digging something up. So he lets us sit down, and we sit down and join him. He lights a cigarette and offers us one, but we pass on that because we're not smoking. So Silas is going to ask, well, why did you bring us here? So Josh is going to explain that during restoration, he discovered a wall in the cellar storage area covering an extensive tunnel. He thinks it was an old drainage system at first, but he found it connected to something larger. He thought it might have had to do with the slave tunnels. I got rid of the laborers I hired. I worked alone since then, so we can explore the tunnels. I really want to get going on this, but it's been a long day. I'm pretty tired on that. We could start as early as tomorrow if the investigators are willing. But can you keep this a little bit on the down low? You might want to get some supplies for us as well. I don't know what things are going to be like, and I don't know how far tunnels are going to extend, so let's be prepared for anything. And if you know what you want to do, I'll be happy to follow along. So Silas will consider that, and he's like, okay, can you give us a little bit of time to get ready on everything? And Josh will reply, sure, I can give you guys a little bit of time to get ready. I really want to get down there, though. Silas is going to say, I know you want to get down there, but I want to do a little bit of research. I want to prepare some supplies first. So that's a little bit of our intro. So now let's actually get into scene 1. And this is where Mythic is going to start to come into play a little bit. So as I'm continuing to set up here and make some changes, I'm going to tip my hand a little bit on what I'm looking to get out of this stream. So by doing a pre-written adventure using Mythic as my oracle, what I'm hoping to get is a pretty good test on how these pre-written adventures go, because I've got, in a few of the RPG systems I've gotten into, I've also gotten my hands on some pre-written adventures, especially for Call of Cthulhu, but I have some for Dungeons and Dragons, and I've got a couple of others as well. So if I like how these pre-written adventures play using Mythic, then I'm going to start putting more of those on the channel. And in particular, there's another very big Call of Cthulhu module that I'm looking to put on the channel. I'm just going to come out and tip my hand on that right now. I'm looking at potentially getting the Masks of Nyarlathotep to run through that on the channel, but I want to see how Mythic and a pre-written adventure interact. So that's kind of what this test is for. I figure we'll do a couple scenes in this adventure tonight, and we'll see how this goes. So our first scene, so the way Mythic works is it works in scenes, where you set up the scene in your head, then you make a roll against your chaos ranking, against your chaos factor, to determine if you're in control of the scene. If the roll is at or above I believe it's at or above. I've got my Mythic book up here so I can double check that. If it's at or above, if it's at or above, I believe we have control of the scene. Whereas if it's below, what kind of table do I have? So I was showing this off earlier, Conflict, but I've got the Mythic Fate chart up here, where we're currently based on a chaos ranking of 5. As you can, it might be a little bit hard to see with the glare on the light, but we can adjust it. We'll adjust it both. We can adjust it horizontally, depending on what our chaos ranking currently is, or vertically, depending on how likely we think a yes or no question is. For instance, as an example of adjusting this, if we were to open a door, if we were to be in a school or something like that, and we're looking at a generic classroom door, we might roll on a 50-50 because it's a pretty even shot that it's going to be that. If we're looking at a classroom, we've got a door there, and we want to determine if it's locked or not, we might take a 50-50 roll to say there's a pretty even shot that it's locked. Table I'm playing on, I find myself not having enough. Oh, the table I'm playing on is actually, believe it or not, it's a conference table that I got from work. I can get merchandise at cost from where I work. It's just a generic 8-foot-long conference table, and this is actually a black tablecloth that I've got on here. So it's just a generic folding conference table. I thought you were wondering about the oracle I'm using. My bad. Anywho. So where was I? Oh yes, we were just about to set up the... I'm still trying to double check how on how to determine we're in control of the scene. I know it's part of rolling on the chaos factor. So scenes. Right. We set up. Okay, so we set up the. So the scene we're setting up here, again, is essentially just kind of the entire bedroom to put up 6x8 tables to put up larger games. Yeah, especially some of the bigger stuff. But yeah, like I said, just a generic folding conference table that I've got here. So, okay. So the scene here on what I think is going to happen is we're going to poke around in Providence to get some information here. And so that'll be scene 1. Poke around Providence for information. All right, so now we're going to roll the D6, or not the D6, the D10, which I've got a generic D10 right here. And now we'll establish the roll here where we roll that. If we get a roll within the chaos factor, so actually a 5 or less will modify the scene, whereas 6 and up scene plays out exactly as we play it, and then there's a difference on if it comes out being odd or even. So let's see what we get here. That is a 1, so because it's odd, we're going to have what's called an altered scene, so something's different. And I'm going to keep a separate journal here on, so scene 1. Initial, we'll call it initial intel gathering. And I'm going to grab one more dial here so I can keep track of my chaos factor. The chaos factor can never go above 9 or below 1. Right now, we are at a chaos factor of 5. So we are going to have an altered scene. So I wonder if the altered scene here, I'm trying to decide how I want to alter this scene. So we're probably going to end up gathering information, but we're probably going to end up gathering most of the information I need, but maybe everybody's hostile to us. I'll think of what I want to do with that. So actually, maybe it's that the town is deserted and there's not much. That might make more sense. Where Providence, for some reason, is deserted. Something's going on. So the question is, what's going on? And I've got also handy here from some other tools that I've got a couple of different tables I can roll on if I want to get some ideas. I've got a verbs table from the Solo Investigator's Handbook that I could roll on, or I've got the keywords table from the Solo Adventurer's Toolkit, more for D&D, but these tables can be used system agnostic, I find. So I'm going to go on the keywords table, see if I can get an idea of why Providence is deserted. So we're going to roll a D8 plus a D100 to get keywords off of this table. Let's see, so D8 and a D100. The D8 is going to be my hundreds die, and I'm going to take that -1. So as an example roll, that rolled out to a 386. I take the D8. I'm going to take the D8 -1 and make that 286, which would correspond to communion. That's an example roll, but now I'm going to do my actual roll, see if I can explain why Providence is deserted. I need to set a little bit of scene in Providence after I get these keywords. Let's see, so that's going to be a 61, unsafe. So unsafe. Let's see, 660 is thick. And unsafe, thick, and 255, mouth. Unsafe, thick, mouth. So maybe it's an early season blizzard that's come to Providence. That actually kind of makes sense. So we've gone out into Providence. Let's do a little bit of, let's see if there's a little bit of exploring that we can do here. So as we kind of surf around town a bit, what we find is there are a few libraries in town that we can go to. There's also a newspaper. Actually, there's a pair of libraries we can go to. And yeah, so okay, so let's start off by going to a plain library. We've got the John Hay Library, which is the current home of the Brown University's library collection That was opened in 1910, so that's at 20 Prospect Street. As we pass by that, we see a marble edifice in English Renaissance style, and it's already too small to contain a pretty sizable collection. And looking inside, the ground floor's public area consists of one long reading room with reference shelves and periodicals. The mezzanine floor above the entrance is, with its two-story stack, an inscribed fireplace. The third floor contains a rare book room, large exhibition area, and a specialized collection, including the Ryder Collection of Rhode Island history. There's also the Providence Athenaeum that we can go to at 251 Benefit Street as a private lending library with a beautiful Greek Revival structure built in 1838. Library includes many historical documents, but access limited to members who pay an annual fee of $15. Given that we live in Arkham, we probably wouldn't be paying that, most likely. So it's a blizzard, which means there are not many people out and about. You like it when it's raining and gloomy. Problem is, I work outside. Yeah, that would pose a problem for... Yeah, gloomy... Like, raining and gloomy would pose a problem for anybody who works outside. Thankfully, though, I think the rain has stopped. But where I live up here in southeastern Wisconsin, it was raining all day. And I was just screaming, hey, let's do a Mythos night on the channel tonight. So that's what brings us together. So I think first we're going to go up to the library. We're going to go up to the John Hay Library. We'll do a little bit of research here to see what we can find out. I want to find out a little bit more about about Providence a bit. So now that we've gone there, let's make a library use roll. See if we can do a little bit of research. So where's Silas's character sheet? Silas's character sheet, his library use is a 40. So let's see what we can do here. On a skill check in Call of Cthulhu, we roll a D100. Anything under that, anything at our skill or under is considered a success. Anything above that is considered a fail. And we can spend luck to try to change some of these results. So we're looking at a library use of a 40. Which that's a 16, so that's actually a hard success. So here's what we find out. Here's what we find out. Rhode Island was an active North American colony, a northern colony in the slave trade, which had half of all the trade in America. Newport was very much the most important Rhode Island port, but Providence was also involved. Despite emancipation during the Revolution, the ownership of slaves did continue until the 1840s. Originally, slaves were primarily sold in the West Indies or brought back to Rhode Island to work on their plantations. When Congress gave the trade an expiration of 1806, Rhode Island served the slave markets of the South, shipping as many slaves as they could as quickly as they could. Conditions for their human cargo were very poor and quickly deteriorating. John Brown tried in 1796 for the slave trade laws, but he was found not guilty. A year later, his slave ship was confiscated and he was tried again. The Brown family of Providence was involved in the slave trade for decades, becoming one of the region's most prominent mercantile and political families. Rhode Island was renamed Brown University because of their donations. And over the years, the discovery of the drainage tunnels and bricked-over cold storage rooms under some of the houses on College Hill stoked speculation that they were used to smuggle slaves into Providence after the laws against the slave trade were passed. In 1901, a cornerstone and nearby tunnel was rediscovered during the renovations on the house of John Brown. The stone was inscribed with Brown's name and a date of 1786 and appears to have stood at the entrance of a large tunnel running towards Benefit Street, wide enough for two grown men to crawl through. And while the head architect dismissed it as a drainage conduit, the tunnel's discovery revived rumors that it had been used to smuggle slaves. So, very heavy speculation. So actually, those tunnels were involved in the slave trade. So that's probably all we can find in the library. We're not able to go to the Providence Athenaeum, though. So what other options do we have here? Well, we'll probably see if there's anybody at the... It is a blizzard. We'll see if there's anybody out at like a general... Was there a general store in this town? I would imagine there was. So the quest, so let's see if we can find a general store. What supplies did he want us to bring? So sturdy boots and a rope with a flashlight. So let's see. So let's head to the general store next. And the question I'm going to put there, and we'll ask Mythic this one, is anyone at the general store? If I just had the blizzard, I would call this a... If I just had the blizzard, I would call this a... I would call this at least an unlikely roll to have anybody there, but because I figure the general store is probably essential to life in Providence, what we're going to do here is we're going to call this a... Let's call that a likely there. So just a quick look at the chart here. So likely, since we're adjusting it down here, that means our yes response here is a 75. So anything 75 and less is a yes, there's somebody at the general store. That's a 27. That's not quite enough for there to be an extraordinary yes, but there is somebody at the general store. So we called that a likely. Yes, there is somebody there. So the shopkeeper greets us and says, "Welcome, welcome, traveler. Is there anything I can help you find?" So we're like, "Yes, we need to find some basic supplies here. We need to find a... Do you happen to have any boots, a flashlight, and a rope, anything like that?" And the shopkeeper will look at us and say, "Yes, I've got all that right here for you." And we'll probably call that a pretty mundane stuff. What's his credit rating? Credit rating is a 20. Ooh. I wonder if I shouldn't roll for that. Or actually, actually, I feel like a PI would probably have a flashlight as it is, because you need to investigate that. His footwear would probably be pretty sturdy. So I think the only question is about buying a rope, but given that rope is likely to be fairly cheap anyway, I think we'll just say he can get a hold of it. So it has flashlight, rope, sturdy footwear. Now how about a luck roll? Actually, let's make a luck roll to see if he's got any kind of firepower with him. Did he remember to... Did he pack his firepower? His luck is a 60, and of course I can't spend luck to manipulate a luck roll. That's a 5. That's an extreme success. So yes, not only did he remember to bring a weapon with him, he actually brought something pretty good. So let's see what he brought with him. I'm going to have him remember that he brought a high-powered firearm of some kind. Let me see what I can find here. I've got to go into the Keeper's Handbook for this one. Let's see. Weapons table. Here we go. So he definitely brought something with him. The question is, what did he bring with him? Given that he's a PI, he would have something anyway. Let's see. Cost 20s. He probably would have looks like he'd have a 32 probably. So we'll call it a 32. Yeah, we'll call it a 32 that he's got with him. .32 revolver. And he's got all kinds of ammunition for that. That is a D8 damage. 15 yards. And 3 uses per round. Anything else I need to know about that? Malfunction on a 100, so that would be a fumble roll. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else that we want to do in town? I don't really think so. So I think we'll start making our way out of the general store back toward Josh's house. So we're heading back to what's the address? 79 Power Street. So heading back through Blizzard. That's going to take a roll of some kind. Let me look at the skill sheet and see what I think I want to roll here for this. I'm not quite sure I want a luck roll here. Probably not necessarily a natural world. Have I tried the First and Goal football game yet? No, I haven't tried it yet. I looked for it very briefly over the weekend, but I wasn't able to track it down. I do still have a note, though, to try to see if I can track it down. Actually, let me see what natural world is. I feel like that's surviving in the outdoors more. Probably not what I want here. It might be just a luck roll that I go with here in terms of trying to get back. So page 52. Natural world. Okay, so that's a... Yeah, natural world isn't what I want here. So yeah, let's just make a luck roll to make his way through the blizzard. See if anything crazy happens as he makes his way back to Josh's house. That's a 71. I could spend 11 luck, but I feel like it's going to be a bit more interesting to have something going on here. So he's making his way through. So he's trying to make his way back in the storm, but he ends up slipping on ice. Actually, he seems like he found a patch of ice. Found a patch of ice. And he's going to try to roll a dex check to see if he's able to catch his footing. Dex to catch footing. His expansion teams are a must. The game is awesome. Okay, good to know. Let's see. Dex is a 50. That's a 10. That's a hard success. So he catches... So actually, he doesn't even really stumble around the patch of ice. He just slides a little bit. He's like, whoa. Got to be careful with... Actually, 10... 10 is actually an extreme success. So finding that patch of ice, he not only catches his footing, he's actually able to stay... He's actually very much able to stay upright. Slides a bit. Otherwise, probably uneventful, getting back to Josh's house. Okay, I think that's probably a good place to break the scene up. So I will... You've never seen someone as lucky as I am with percentile dice. Well, it happens on occasion. I usually tend to have a love-hate relationship with dice. You can ask Jester about some of my dice rolls. I've had absolutely horrendous rolls, depending on the type of dice I'm rolling. But we'll take a small break here. I'm going to put the stream into be right back, but I will be around to interact with chat since I do want to journal this entry up. Ow, felt my knee crack there. So be right back. Ooh, I felt that one too. Okay, so let's go Sorry, I don't mean to be yawning as well. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. Okay. So we'll tab back in and we'll get that journal entry and we'll read this first journal entry. So this is on the initial intel gathering. Hey Jester, you're just in time for me to sum up the first scene in my Call of Cthulhu adventures tonight for the Darkness Beneath the Hill. So, after Josh's briefing, I decided to head out and gather some initial information. To my surprise, though, the town seemed deserted, though I suspected the early season blizzard had a lot to do with that. There were two libraries in town I could check out. One seemed like a public library, and the other was a more private library that I hadn't paid for. I went to the public library and learned a lot about Providence's involvement in the slave trade. After my research in the library, I went back out into the blizzard since Josh said something about some supplies. Fortunately, I already had a flashlight and sturdy footwear, as my work as a PI called for that. To my surprise, the shopkeeper was in at the general store, and I was also able to get some rope. I was also able to get some ammo for my 32 revolver that I was glad I remembered to pack for this job. After my shopping at the general store, I headed back to Josh's house. As I walked, I found a patch of ice that must have been hidden by the snow, but I was able to keep my footing and keep myself from falling. Otherwise, my walk was uneventful as I made my way back to Josh's house. So now we're getting ready for scene 2. And what I'm envisioning here, also the chaos ranking, the chaos factor is going to go up to 6. So this one's my chaos factor dial. Now we're up to a 6 on the chaos factor. A cool thing about this, I'll listen to this story as a story as I fall asleep. Phoenix Knight is a good storyteller. Thanks for the kind words on that conflict. So now we've got to set our scene here. And I think the scene I want to set here, now we're back to the house. So I think the scene I want here is we want to initially look for the, actually probably I think he knows where the tunnel is, doesn't he? Let me go back in my story and check that. Telling him he found something incredible. Okay, so he does know where the tunnel is in the house. So I guess the scene here is going to be exploring around for other clues to see if we can get into the tunnel and maybe the initial exploration there. So yes, so searching for other clues to prepare for going into this tunnel. Searching the house for other clues. So now we're going to roll against our chaos factor once again. Our chaos factor is a 6 currently. So let's see if the scene goes off as intended. Well, maybe not intended, but as we're envisioning it, that's a 2. So this time, because our roll is even this time, we'll modify the scene setup. So we've got an interrupt scene, which means we need to roll for the event focus and the meaning of it. So first we're going to roll for the event focus for Mythic. This is a D100. So the scene's been interrupted. So the scene's going to get interrupted at some point. Let's see what interrupts. Let's see what's going to interrupt it. That's a 100, so NPC positive. I'm just going to jot some notes here. So NPC positive. And then we'll roll for a meaning. So now I'm rolling on these two tables, event meaning action and event meaning subject. Let's see, that's a 9. So malice, Malice. $35. Malice legal matters. Malice legal matters. Not sure which game this is. The Cthulhu games I've played with cards or tiles. Which game is this? So this is actually excuse me. So this is actually Call of Cthulhu by Chaosium Inc. This is their role-playing game, and what I'm using as my oracle for my yes/no questions, as we talked about earlier, is Mythic Game Master Emulator. So Malice legal matters. Let's see what kind of legal matters we get here. Maybe keywords will give me an idea of that. What did I do with here's my keywords table. Nope, never mind. I need the D8. Let's see, that's a 241. Yep, it is an RPG. I don't know if you were around for Pinot with Phoenix for October Conflict, but I talked about how I'm going to be doing more with tabletop RPGs on the channel, at least this month, and probably moving forward. More on that to come during November's Pinot with Phoenix. 241 guidance. And I've got to remember we've got to have some kind of positive event coming out of this. Well, maybe NPC positive. Possibly for possibly Josh, but we'll see what I come up with. 527. 527 weather. And 157 aftershock. So maybe maybe it's like an earthquake. So possibly an earthquake as we're digging into this. Maybe we uncovered an earthquake of something under the house. That could be a thing we do. So dealing with an earthquake, that's probably going to be a... So if we're dealing with an earthquake here, that's going to be some kind of check. So actually, let me make some notes on scene 2. Searching house for clues. Started gaming lifestyle with RPGs in the early 80s. I've got quite a long history with RPGs, but a lot of those relate to video games. And it's only recently that I've started to explore tabletop RPGs, but this almost feels like a perfect fit for me. Just being able to dig in and really tell a story. Malice, legal matters. Okay, so right, so we're dealing with an earthquake I think here. I'm just deciding what kind of a check that's going to be. That's probably going to be I think that's going to be a dex check to keep our footing stable as we deal with this earthquake. So let's make it a dex check to see if we're able to keep our footing stable. Dex once again is a 50. I don't need the D8. That's a 68, so we fail, which means so since we fail the check, we end up falling on our butt. We'll take so we fail, which is so we just fall. We're not able to catch our footing. Let's roll a luck check to see if anything falls on us. Because in the house, given that there was a lot of stuff around, there's probably going to be something that's going to fall. There might be stuff around. So fall down, unstable footing. Luck to see if anything falls on us. All right, let's roll luck of 60. That's a 90, so something is going to fall on us. Fail for something to fall. So given that we're in the house, is this going to be... So let me just double check what we saw inside the house. I thought there was an explanation here. Yeah, looks like we've got a bunch of stuff here. So, Star Frontiers started it all. That led you into D&D, which also led into a universe of RPGs. Now that you're older, prefer war games and that type. There's nothing wrong with preferring one type of game over another. Everybody has their thing that they like. So we probably just had some debris fall on us or something. We'll call any of that negligible impact. So we'll just say debris fell on him. Nothing crazy yet. But the scenario is very young. So after we recover from the earthquake, next thing we want to do is start poking around. So let's So actually, there's no response to the knock. Calling out brings no answer. That's where the earthquake kind of happened there. So now we head down to the basement, but we find a cooling cup of coffee this time. Tools. We see tools near the brick wall, in which a hole big enough to get through can be seen. These are probably the same tools that fell on us when the earthquake happened. On the other side, we've got a brick-lined tunnel to deal with that branches into what looks like a wider natural cavern. And yes, Silas would be using his flashlight here to see everything here. So now we need to make a track. So let's see if there's anything around. We'll make a track roll for that. So on a track roll of a 60 for Silas. That's a 35. That's not quite a hard success, but it's a regular success will do. So here we find a man's footprints going into the tunnel, but they disappear once we get clear of the debris and dust from the excavation. So about 50 feet in to the east, we see the tunnel completely collapsed some time ago. So probably, excuse me, footprints. Footprints going west. They disappear past the debris and dust. And after we get about 50 feet, the tunnel completely collapsed. I was going to say some time ago, but that could easily be from the earthquake that we just had. The tunnel collapsed. So as we head west along the tunnel after about 200 feet, so at that point, we come across some ancient human remains 10 feet from an opening on the south wall. We think about 6 people, and there's iron manacles around the limbs of 3 of them, so probably slaves. So let's make neither of his skills for that are particularly good. Science. Yeah, he's not really doing much with the bodies there. So let's see what else we might be able to do here. Probably not a lot. With that, he'll see if nothing there is really catching his eye. He's going to bypass all of that. So he's going to continue going into the tunnel. He's going to continue going into the tunnel to see if... He's going to continue going further into the tunnel. And then he'll move it... when he gets to an opening in the south wall, let's see if we can make a spot hidden roll. He'll try to make a spot hidden roll as he continues to navigate, see if he can see anything. Spot hidden as he continues to traverse. His spot hidden is a 60. That's a 16. That's a hard success. So spot hidden, he sees a Turkish cigarette. And he'll recognize it's the same. It's the same kind of cigarette Josh smokes. So presumably Josh came down here earlier. And so now he's got a downward sloping passage. The corridor twists and turns, and about half a mile in a depth of 200 feet. He'll see a bend of steady. He'll see a bend around a bend to see steady dim light. Passage straightens out. The dice tower is badass. Where did I get it? Thank you. I actually got it off of Amazon. It's the, I'm trying to remember what brand it is. Let me see if I can track it down here real quick. I have a feeling we're going to be near the end of the scene here pretty soon anyway, because he's probably going to turn around and get some sleep. So let me see if I can track down that dice tower for you, Conflict. Remember Top Secret by TSR? Not something I'm familiar with, sorry. Let's see. I don't remember the brand of the dice tower off the top of my head, but I know I'll recognize it when I spot it on Amazon. Ah, here it is. Oh, it's a Smonex. It's the Smonex dice tower. I did look at the video you sent me about RPG stuff, Jester. I've got quite a few RPGs that I'm looking into myself, though. So it's probably not something I'm going to get into here, but it might not link. But it might not link for you, Conflict. But if you look at that tower, if you search for that tower on Amazon, it'll pop up for you. Actually, I may have to. But that's the tower that I've got, Conflict. So that's the one. That's the one you'll want to look for. So where was I? Oh yes. So he goes down to see a bend of steady light. The light grows brighter, but the light source remains unknown. So I think he's going to turn around. We'll go find it. We'll go find a hotel in Providence. We'll find a hotel in Providence to get some sleep. And I'll go ahead and journal this up, and then that'll probably be a stream. So once again, I'll put the stream into into be right back, so I can journal this up. But I will still be interacting with chat. So scene 2, this one was All right. Got our next entry here ready to go. So we'll tab back in. And here's scene 2. So we were searching the house for clues, but we had an interrupted scene with an earthquake. I went back to Josh's house, but there was no one inside. As I headed down to the basement, I felt some aftershocks, like an earthquake. I tried to brace myself to keep from falling, but I couldn't, and I ended up falling. Some of the aftershocks knocked some debris down on me, but I wasn't surprised about that as I'd seen debris in the house. Heading down to the basement once the quake stopped, I saw the tunnel that Josh must have walked and wanted to take me toward. I was able to find some footprints as I headed west into the tunnel, but the footprints disappeared pretty quickly once I got past the debris and dust. Heading further in, I saw the tunnel collapsed, probably from the earthquake, and I saw what looked like some ancient human remains. There were some manacles on 3 of them, but as I don't specialize in dead bodies, I didn't do anything with those. I presumed they were from the slave trade in Providence's earlier days. As I got further in, though, I saw a Turkish cigarette which was the same brand Josh smoked. I knew I wanted to do more with this tunnel, but I decided to get some fresh eyes first, so I went and got some sleep. And that's actually going to conclude this stream of Call of Cthulhu. Some of these weeknight streams are a little bit on the shorter side, but I want to do a couple of quick scenes of an adventure as a test using Mythic. And I think all in all, using Mythic as my Game Master emulator. By the way, that'll bump my cast factor up to 7. As I was saying, I think using Mythic as my Game Master emulator for a pre-written adventure is going to work a lot better than trying to use the Solo Investigator's Handbook was going to. My worry there, as I mentioned at the top, was that if I was trying to do a pre-written adventure with the Solo Investigator's Handbook and the way that's structured, I didn't think the two were going to play nicely with each other. But I think in this case, these two, a pre-written adventure and Mythic, will play very nicely with each other. And I like the ability of Mythic, where you can actually alter a scene of a pre-written adventure. So even if and it was a challenge for me as well with the pre-written adventure to not spoil myself in terms of what's coming. But since I essentially have to be both keeper and player, there's really no getting around spoiling that for myself. It's just a matter of, okay, yes, I'm going to see some of that information, but I just don't want to act on it. So it's a kind of a balancing act there for me. But on the same token, I want to give you guys enough that you're able to envision what's going on with Theater of the Mind, which I know I've always been kind of challenged with in some ways. But rambling aside, that'll wrap tonight's stream of Call of Cthulhu, as we will continue The Darkness Beneath the Hill, probably at some point in the future. I would be surprised if we don't continue that. And as far as my long-term plan of picking up the Masks of Nyarlathotep to go through that on the channel, I probably will grab that at some point. I could see that being a month-long adventure. I could see that being an adventure I dig into during a baseball season, but I'm getting way long ahead on that, even if the picking up of the Masks of Nyarlathotep could happen in the next couple of months. But a lot of time on that front. So that'll wrap tonight's stream up. As far as what's coming up on the channel, I'm sure I'm going to have another stream tomorrow night. We may do another scene or two in my adventure of Dragon Age with Adana Brightmare, as we continue her story looking for her mage trainer. After that, Wednesday we'll be back to the boxing ring again as we play Glory Days Boxing from Glory Days Games. Saturday, Mystical Munchies will continue out of the unofficial Disney Parks cookbook with the dessert, caramel pecan bars. Sunday next week, we're going to be back on the links again as we have another round of golf. This time, we're going to ASG golf. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care, everyone.